All right, so you're gonna, again, you want to have out your identity sheet, you want to have out your unit circle, and then just roll regular old notes today, okay? So we're gonna start with this wonderful warm-up question. So the question is this: given the fact that the sine of t is negative 12/13, okay, I want you to find 6 things. What quadrant could t be in? What's the value of the sine of negative t? What's the value of the sine of t plus pi? What's the value of the sine of t minus 2 pi? What's the cosine of t? And what is the cotangent of t? Okay? So find me those 6 things. I'll give you 5 minutos to do said work.
Shoot. Equals negative. Is that for the recording?
That's, yeah, oh yeah, we're recording, man. Okay, so sine is negative. That tells me that I can be in which 2 quadrants? 3 and 4. Okay, or 3 or 4 is what I should say. Okay, so that narrows it down that we are in quadrant 3 or quadrant 4. Okay? And that's the only thing that we can decipher from that, because we don't have a second thing to tell us which quadrant we can narrow it down. So all we know is we're on the bottom half of the unit circle. Okay? Then, letter B said we want to know what the value of the sine of negative t is. And if I look at my trig identities pink sheet, this is formula number 2 on that one. That says that the sine of negative t is equal to negative sine of t. Which means if sine of t is negative 12/13, that means that the negative sine of negative t would be equal to positive 12/13.
Where's 2 pi?
Agree with me on that one. Okay. Then next it said, now let's go to the sine value. Come on. Now it said, what is the sine value of t plus pi? Okay. So that tells me, according to this worksheet, or my identity sheet and number 9, that tells me that that is negative sine of t, which would be positive 12/13. Sine of t minus 2 pi, this was on our obviosities worksheet from last week, which means that we are going clockwise around the unit, or around the circle, 1 full lap, so we end up back in the exact same spot. So that is going to be equal then to, whoops, tap the brakes, I forgot that I got to get off. That's one, and on to this one, and so that is going to be negative 12/13. Then it said we wanted to figure out cosine and cotangent. Well, we've got to use some wonderful things. We have the hammer at our disposal. Cosine squared plus sine squared is equal to 1. Cosine squared is what we're looking for. Sine is negative 12/13, and I am going to square that. Negative 12/13 squared is 169. Yep. Cosine squared of t plus 144 over 169. Now I could write 1 here, right? Equals 1. But if I was proactive, instead of writing 1, I would write 169 over 169. Subtract 144 over 169 gives me 25 169ths. Divide. Square root. Yes, because I want to get cosine by itself.
5/13.
Do we agree with 5/13? Yes? 100%? 100%? 5/13? Jackson, what do you got? Love it. Okay? Plus or minus. For 2 reasons, we've got a plus or minus there. First reason is we're solving and we're square rooting. So that tells us automatically bring in the plus or minus. Second reason is because we said back in letter A that we were in quadrants 3 and 4. Okay? Which means if we're in quadrant 3, cosine is negative. If we're in quadrant 4, cosine is positive. Okay? So we have to have both of them there because we are in 2 different quadrants. So the cosine here then would be plus or minus 5/13. Now we need cotangent. Cotangent says that cotangent, if I'm not mistaken, was equal to x over y, or cosine over sine, right? So that is going to be then, my cosine value is plus or minus 5/13. My sine value is negative 12/13. I have a fraction divided by a fraction. Keep. Change. Flip. Right? The 13s, one's on top, one's on the bottom. Go away. Which leaves me with plus or minus 5 over negative 12. Right? If it's positive 5 divided by negative 12, that's going to give me negative 5/12. Right? If it's negative 5 over negative 12, that's going to give me positive 5/12. Okay? So I could just simply say, instead of plus or minus 5 over negative 12, I'm just going to say plus or minus 5/12. Okay. Good time. Questions, comments, concerns, clarifications, complaints, haikus, similes, speeches. I know we just got those are advanced comp speeches. So, what's your speech?
Sports team names and why they shouldn't be changed.
Why they shouldn't be changed?
Yeah. Danny, what do you think of my speech?
Okay. Good. With that being said, we are done now with the pink sheet. If you wanted to store it away for future keeping, that's fine. All right. So what we are going to do now is we are going to start finding theta. And we're going to find theta on the unit circle. So you definitely want to have your unit circles out now in place of your pink sheets. Okay? You need your unit circle. You don't need the pink
I
sheet.
can take it out my.
Okay? Alright? So, we are going to, for now, we are going to restrict theta. Oops, got the brakes. We're going to restrict theta to an acute angle. With that being said, where am I on the unit circle? If theta is an acute angle, quadrant 1, and only quadrant 1. Okay? Because quadrant 1 is the only spot where acute angles live on the unit circle. Okay? So we are taking our unit circle, and what we're doing now is in our brains, we are limiting our unit circle to just that quarter of it. Because that's where these problems live. So when it says the cosine of theta is equal to the square root 3 over 2, that tells me in my brain, I'm saying, okay, where in quadrant 1 is cosine of theta square root 3 over 2? Cosine is x or y? X. So where in quadrant number 1 is my x value square root 3 over 2? Pi over 6. So it's right here. Right there. So it's either pi over 6 or 30 degrees. Now, I was just about to talk about that. We prefer the radian measure. Okay? Unless there's another direction that says give your answer in degrees. Or the range of your answer is between 180 and 360 degrees or something like that. Okay? So if there's another classification, qualification, condition, that's where I was trying to think of the word. If there's another condition to the problem that says in degrees, then we want degrees. Otherwise, radians. Okay? Second one. Tangent now equal to 1. So where, first quadrant again, where is on the unit circle, where is tangent? I'm going to go to Ashley this time. Where is tangent? Pi over 4? Because they need to be the same, correct? Okay? X and Y have to be the same because it's y over x. Tangent is y over x. So they have to be the same. So that would be pi over 4. Now I got to bring this one up so that we can see it. I keep forgetting. Okay? And our last one is where on the unit circle, in the first quadrant, is my sine value equal to 1/2. Pi over 6. Right? Y, sine is y. I'm looking for where it's pi over, or where it's 1/2. So that is pi over 6. Questions, comments, concerns, clarifications? Ready to try one on your own? Love it. Let's do it. Okay? Ooh, come on now. Ooh, come on now. There it is. Okay? Find theta without using a calculator. Theta is an acute angle, and the tangent of theta is equal to the square root of 3. So, I'm in quadrant 1 still because theta is an acute angle. Correct? Okay. What quadrant 1 angle has been eliminated from contention? 45 degrees or pi over 4? Because 45 degrees or pi over 4 does not contain a square root of 3. So that one can automatically go away. Okay? Yeah. Siri came on. Okay? Alright? So that means I've got to look at pi over 6. So because tangent, remember, was, oops, tangent of t, I should say. Tangent of t is y over x. So if I look at pi over 6, then that's going to be 1/2 over the square root of 3 over 2. Keep, change, flip is going to be 1 over the square root of 3. And if I rationalize that, multiplied by the square root of 3 over the square root of 3, then that's going to give me the square root of 3 over 3. Not equal to the square root of 3. So then I say to myself, now I've got to go to pi over 3. Pi over 3 would be the reciprocal of that. So that would be the square root of 3 over 2 times 2 over 1, which is just the square root of 3. That's what I want it to be. So theta here is pi over 3. Yep. Another one for you to try. Cosecant, still in quadrant 1, cosecant equal to the square root of 2. What's it got to be?
1.
Pi over 4, right?
I was thinking why. You even started the video and everything.
I did.
That's just why.
Why?
I think that made it
Okay.
better.
So cosecant is 1 over y, right? So if I'm looking at pi over 4, then that's going to be 1 over the square root of 2 over 2, which is 1 times 2 over the square root of 2. Multiply that by the square root of 2 over the square root of 2, and that gets me 2 square roots of 2 all over 2, which is just the square root of 2, which is what I needed. Okay? Now, the downfall is that life is great, grand, and wonderful in quadrant 1, but there's 3/4 of the unit circle to go yet. So what we do in that case is we give you a second condition. Okay? So we will tell you a couple of things. We'll tell you 2 pieces of information on most theta findings. In the last 5 examples, it was that we had the sign, the trig value equals something, and then we also told you theta was an acute angle. Here now, I'm telling you that we've got 2 different things. So this is telling me that I'm in which 2 quadrants?
It's quadrant 2.
Quadrant 2 or quadrant 3?
Oh, yeah.
Because cosine is negative, left half of the unit circle. That's quadrants 2 and 3. Okay? The second piece of information is telling me 2 things also. First off, it's telling me which quadrant am I restricted in? Quadrant 2. But it is also telling me that I want my answer in radians.
So if that was like in degrees, that would be targets that we wanted.
Yep, exactly. So if that said between 90 and 180 degrees, then we want our answer in degrees. Okay? So each piece tells you 2 things. Okay? So where in quadrant 2, because that's the quadrant that we have to be in, where in quadrant 2 is my cosine value negative square root 3 over 2? Go ahead, Sam.
5 pi over 6.
5 pi over 6. Do we agree with 5 pi over 6? 5 pi over 6. So theta is over 6. Questions, comments, concerns, clarifications? Okay? So with that being said, you now try those 2 examples. So this tells me that I should be in quadrant 1 or 3. That's where tangent is positive. Tangent positive in 1 and 3, negative in 2 and 4. This tells me that 1, my answer needs to be in radians, but this also tells me that I'm limiting it to quadrant 3. So I need to look for quadrant 3 angles only. Okay? So if I start at tangent being y over x, and let's start at 7 pi over 6. If I go with 7 pi over 6, then that's going to be negative 1/2 all over negative square root 3 over 2. Keep, change, flip. That's going to be positive 1 over the square root of 3. If I multiply by the square root of 3 over the square root of 3, then that gives me square root of 3 over positive 3, which is what I needed it to be. So we found it on our first one. Had it not been this one, then we would have went to 4 pi over 3, and it would have had to have been 4 pi over 3. Okay? Okay? So theta here is 7 pi over 6. Yes? Okay. Next one. Cosecant is negative. Where is cosecant negative? 3 and 4? Because that cosecant is tied in with sine. Okay? So this is quadrants 3 or 4. Cosine is positive. Where is cosine positive? 1 and 4. Yep. So which quadrant am I in that satisfies both conditions?
4.
Quadrant 4. So I need to be in quadrant 4. Okay. Cosecant. So that's 1 over y. I'm going to show you a different way of doing this one. So cosecant of theta is equal to 1 over y. The cosecant, we said, was negative 2. So negative 2 has to equal 1 over y. Multiply both sides by y. Gives me negative 2y equals 1. Divide by negative 2. That gives me y equals negative 1/2. So where in quadrant 4 is my y value negative 1/2? 11 pi over 6. So theta here is 11 pi over 6. Questions, comments, concerns, clarifications? We'll do more of this tomorrow and more of this on Friday and more of this next week. More of this throughout the rest of the time. Okay? So, what I need you to do now is I need you to get out your Chromebook. Keep out your unit circle. You'll need that out. Now, there are multiple spots that you can find this formative quiz once you get into the It's Learning pre-calculus page. Okay? First off, right off the start, it's under your plans. Okay? It's under the plans on the left side. It also should be a task for you to do on the right side of the first page, or of the initial page. If you don't see either one of those, you can go under the Resources tab for sections 4.2 and 4.3 and scroll down until you see Formative Assessment 4-1. Or you can go to this week's page in the Resources tab or in your plans, and it has its own designated box. Okay? Your test, the formative, is online. It's 13 questions long. I also recommend that you have a piece of scratch paper out for you to do some figuring on, if you will. You have until 11:59 p.m. this evening to get it done. More than likely, you will get it done in the next 13 minutes. Okay?
There's 13